This is another lesson in the series Becoming Human, and we'll focus on the interaction between culture and brains. We have learned that the key to our story, our ability to link our minds to solve the problems of living in a new environment, and it's something the ancestors of chimps did not have to do as they continued to live in the forest. But our ancestors had to make living in a new habitat, the grasslands, with new opportunities but also new threats. Now, in order to cope with the challenges of the grassland habitat, we've learned that our ancestors evolved various physical attributes like bipedal skeleton and a more robust thumb and the introduction of tools, but they also modified their social arrangements. We had learned about cooperative breeding, allowed foragers to go off and be more successful, leaving the children at home to be cared for by other adults, and we also learned about greater male investment in offspring. So these social changes were brought about in order to help the group survive in this challenging environment. And interdependence captures the nature of this lifestyle. Whether it's scavenging or hunting, group members had to cooperate with each other to succeed in this difficult environment. And we saw the interdependent lifestyle also corresponds with the time period where we see the expansion of the human brain. And we can begin to understand why it is that natural selection would favor larger brains when we take a look at what was going on in the human group. So here are our ancestors at one of their home bases here, and look at everything that's going on. You've got to learn how to build tools and to take care of the offspring and to prepare the food, and how do you do the hunting? How do you stay safe from predators? You need to learn the ways of your group and the expectations. So when you go hunting, you don't lay down on a job. So these are norms, social norms. So cooperation was critical to the success of the individual as well as the group. And under those circumstances, that puts a lot of demands on the human brain. Notice the scope and complexity of these interactions, they just don't happen in chimp societies. They just don't need a lot of cultural learning to meet their everyday needs. And in that kind of situation where we're generating cultural knowledge to solve the problems of living, that's going to set up selection pressures for the evolution of brains that are capable of learning that cultural information, storing it, using it, and indeed improving upon it. So here was our history in brief again. Some 6-7 million years ago, our ape ancestor splits into two groups. Our ancestors became bipedal and left the trees for a grassland habitat with new dangers and opportunities. Our ancestors first had to collaborate to get food. They were eating plant material, but also supplementing that with meat in this scavenging way of life. And then our ancestors had to discover and share better ways to secure calories and stay safe. Notice the transition to hunting, a more reliable way of ensuring that you get adequate meat in the diet. At this stage, scientists think that this interdependent way of life really started to drive evolutionary change in our psychologies. We evolved psychological adaptations for linking minds in a cooperative context, and we'll explore some of those in upcoming lessons. But language, of course, was a critical cultural invention, but then it also influenced the evolution of our brains. So we have neural circuitry that makes us ready to learn language in a way that just no other species on Earth can match. At this stage also, we would have the emergence of social norms to govern behavior. You had to be a willing and competent participant in the group's activities. Those who weren't could be ostracized. So it sets up selection pressures for the evolution of cooperative psychologies. Interdependence, we can think of it this way. Group members depend on each other to learn necessary skills, follow group norms, and cooperate to meet group goals. Interdependent life generates many roles. Here's a simple example. Not the hunting example, but let's say fishing. Now, here's some fish in the stream. What you can do if you have a collaborative partner is you can say, okay, I'll throw the net just as you scare the fish towards my direction. You see, notice then, that requires some amount of cooperation, and each individual is playing a different role. So in complex interdependent groups, individuals must learn different roles in the many joint enterprises that help the group survive. There are certain ways of doing things, and this creates expectations for individual performance according to group standards or norms. A little more technically, interdependence means that it is in the interest of the individual to help others who might be future partners in collaboration. Helping another now increases the probability that the partner will be able to collaborate in the future. You see, if I help you now, well, then you're going to be in a better position to be able to help me later. Individuals trust that other group members are motivated to help the group succeed. Individuals expect others to have the knowledge and skills to perform important tasks necessary for group success. So this was a really important stage in our evolutionary history because it really favored cooperative psychologies. Now, let's revisit language. Language allows for something very powerful, the construction of collective minds. Of course, language is a communication system, and it allows two individuals to, in a sense, bridge their minds. They can share their thoughts, and they can think about what the other one is thinking, and they can have a conversation and generate new knowledge or a plan or some new way of doing something. And when one human discovers something, they can share it with us through language, so we can all have each other's minds within our own. Hence the big brain here with a bunch of little brains. So each of our brains can store the wisdom of many other brains if you have an efficient communication system like language. And our communication system is unmatched in the animal kingdom. And notice, if it's an advantage to be able to store the wisdom of others in your group within your own brain, that's going to set up a selection pressure that will favor larger brains, more cerebral cortex, more neurons to store more memory traces. So the interdependent lifestyle selected for individuals capable and motivated to put their minds together to solve problems. Language provided a bridge to connect minds, and collective learning massively increased cultural knowledge and skills. Greater interdependence influenced the evolution of our psychologies and social behaviors. Cultural knowledge and practices became the key to success, especially when human groups had to compete with other intelligent and highly capable human groups. So for the last 2 million years, the human cultural environment selected for brains capable of acquiring, storing, using, and passing on cultural information. Our ancestors crossed a Rubicon that no other species has managed to do. We evolved into a fully cultural species.